Okay, I want to talk about what a mess the Halloween series of films has become in terms of storyline and continuity. And so I'm going to try to figure it out. You got the first film.
The one, the only, the classic Halloween.
Late 70s. Pretty simple story. Little kid goes crazy, kills his sister, gets put in a mental hospital, escapes years later as an adult, comes back to town, decides he wants to kill some babysitters, kills a couple of them, and he's being hunted by this Ahab character who is Dr. Loomis. And he tries to kill Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode, and Loomis shows up and shoots him, and he falls off the balcony, and they go and they walk out and they look over the edge, and he's gone. And the story's over, and that's all you needed, really. But, of course, it made money, and so they had to do a part two. So part two, still pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just a continuation of that same night, longest night in history of the town of Haddonfield. But the action continues into the hospital where some of the victims have been taken. At least that's where Laurie Strode has been taken. And turns out that Michael Myers isn't dead. And he's at the hospital, and he's taking out nurses and doctors and orderlies, and then he gets blown up at the end, Dr. Loomis too. And we'll skip part 3, because that really has nothing to do with the other films. And then you hit part 4, and now Laurie Strode is gone. Loomis survived somehow, but he's got a burn that looks different in every scene. And Michael Myers, of course, survived and got put in another institution, and wouldn't you know, he escapes again. But now you have the focus of his murderous rage is the daughter of the Jamie Lee Curtis character, Laurie. And what we found out in part 2 that was never mentioned in part 1 is that Michael Myers is actually the brother of Laurie Strode. But unfortunately, she died off screen between 2 and 4. At least that's what they told us. And now this is her daughter, which technically, well, not technically, is Michael Myers' niece. And he wants to kill her, and we don't really know why, but he does. And so that movie happens. And then you got 5, which is probably best to not say too much about, but it's still the same storyline. 6, you're getting into supernatural territory. You know, that doesn't really go anywhere. And Loomis dies, and the actor who played Loomis, Donald Pleasance, died shortly after filming that. And so you think that the series is over, but no, you'd be wrong, because now you have, in the late 90s, Halloween H2O, which is a title that really doesn't make any sense, but I see where they were going 20 years after the original. Anyway, so now we find out that Laurie Strode didn't die, apparently also never had a daughter, so let's just scrap those 3 movies, but did have a son and moved to California to hide from her brother, who apparently is just out and about roaming the countryside free as a bird. And she's living under an assumed name. Of course, it's been 20 years since the night that all the shit happened, and I don't know why, but he waited that long to come back, and he finds her and offs a few teenagers at the school. She's the headmistress of this kind of fancy private school. And, you know, he kills a few people, and then at the end, spoiler alert, she cuts his head off. You think, okay, well, he's got to be dead now. No. Because then you have Halloween Resurrection, which, not a standout in terms of quality for the series. A few fun moments, a few that I think we'd all rather forget. Turns out she didn't decapitate her brother because that wasn't him. We see a little retcon deal in the beginning that shows that Michael switched places when no one was looking with a EMT or an officer or something, I don't remember. And that's who she really killed. Now she is in the institution because she kind of went nuts, partially because she decapitated some poor schmuck that didn't deserve it, and murderous brother is still on the loose, and so she gets herself locked up, and then again, spoiler alert, she gets killed by Michael in like the first 10 minutes of the movie. So no more Laurie Strode. Once again, deceased. And then it becomes all about the house, the Michael Myers house, and they're shooting a reality show in there with hidden cameras and everything. And Busta Rhymes shows up at one point and does some kung fu. And honestly, I don't even remember how it ends. But then it's over. They're done with the series. Except for they're not, because a few years later they bring in Rob Zombie. That's right. Rob Zombie's going to resurrect the franchise, and what he does is he basically remakes the first one, but adds in all of this backstory, because that's what everyone was dying to know is, okay, Michael Myers is a scary killer, but what were his parents like? You know, let's check that out for 45 minutes of running time. What kind of childhood did he have? Did he have friends? Did he get a good grade on the big math test? The fans were dying to know. So, you know, that one pretty much plays out like the first one. And then, of course, that one did okay, so they had to do a 2. They did a second Halloween 2. And in that one, God only knows. I think there's a scene with a unicorn or something. We'll just move on. Of course, then and then there's nothing for a while, and then you enter Jason Blum and Kenny Powers, and they're gonna make a movie that's better than any of the other movies, because it's now 2018, and it took that long for filmmaking as an art form to really reach maturity, so that it could transcend the things holding back the original film and its sequels, really elevate it, you know. I think that's where that term elevated horror comes from.
I loved the notion that there was the greatest horror movie of all time, Halloween, right, was made, and then there were 9 subsequent movies made, none of which were too good. Some better than others, but they were kind of lacking. And so I loved the challenge of, we have a very specific way we make movies at Blumhouse, and could we kind of impose our system on this IP that's been around for so long and see if we could actually make a good Halloween.
So, Blumhouse imposed their process on the IP, and you have this. You know, basically is a direct sequel to the first Halloween, even though it's called Halloween. It's technically Halloween 2, but we already have a Halloween 2, and then we have a Halloween 2 to the Halloween remake by Rob Zombie. So you could say it's Halloween 2 again, and again, I guess. But this one ignores the original Halloween 2. So the reveal that happened in the original Halloween 2 that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers were related, that gets wiped out for whatever reason. And this Halloween movie ignores all those movies and just goes back to the original. But of course, Donald Pleasance is gone, may he rest in peace. So they get a new guy, and he's the new Loomis. And they even say he's the new Loomis. It's in the script. A character says that, which is really something. That one does big box office. And Blumhouse is lining everybody's pockets. So they do another one. So technically a fourth Halloween 2. But they don't call it Halloween 2 because that would be passé and lame. So they call it Halloween Kills, which that's a head scratcher. I mean, just from the standpoint of basic English, Halloween isn't killing anybody. Who knows? But in that one, they really love the phrase, and you hear it about 1,000 times in the movie, evil dies tonight. And they keep saying that. It's like a mantra for the mob. And, evil dies tonight, and that's what's going to happen. That's their goal. They bring back some of the main characters in this one they were little kids in the first one. And one of them was on Real Housewives of Poughkeepsie or something. And so evil's gonna die tonight, except whoops, it doesn't. Spoiler alert again, evil does not die tonight. And so, didn't work. Instead, they kill another guy who could only be mistaken for Michael Myers if you have recently sustained a serious head injury. Fair enough. And so that happens, and he lives, and then we have Halloween Ends, which you go, okay, let's say that's the last Halloween movie, which it probably won't be, but Halloween's gonna end, and it's part of the new Blumhouse trilogy. They just made a movie that I think nobody wanted. It goes off on all these odd tangents. Laurie Strode's arc kind of sort of concluded in the 2018 movie, but then they pretended like in Halloween Kills that there was going to be this big showdown between her and Michael, but it never happens in that movie. So, it's probably going to happen in the next movie, but doesn't really. I mean, it kind of does. But there's a new character who's a guy who's supposed to be this misunderstood kind of outcast guy who gets bullied by a group of roving band nerds, and then later on, even though he can't stand up to a bunch of drum majors, he apparently has the inner evil, that Hulk strength that Michael Myers can summon because he's just so evil, and he kicks Michael Myers' ass, and he steals his mask, which rude. And then at the end, Michael Myers gets ground up into oblivion, and then Halloween ends. There's a scene where Laurie Strode says, "We're not going to talk about him," because I guess the idea is he plagued everybody's lives so much with this riding, sustained dread and fear that he created, that they just want him to go away and no one to talk about him again. So that's what she's going to do, and her approach to doing that is to write a tell-all book about her story and Michael Myers, and allowing him to live in infamy forever. So that's where we're at with that series. We'll have to see what happens next. I'm sure it's going to be a wild ride. Maybe Michael Myers can be brought back to life through nanobots or something. Who knows? But anyway, take care. That's my thoughts on that. Have a good one.